Hello,
Okay.
everyone.
Hello. Welcome, Internet. This is the August 14th Jupyter IPython dev meeting. And why don't we get going on the reporting? Min, do you want to post? Do we have the new hackpad?
It's in the same place. Yeah.
Now we have the part 2, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Part 2.
It's linked from part 1. The first thing on part 1 is the link to part 2. So.
Part 2. Perfect.
Yeah. Okay.
So I added my name to the top of the list. Does that mean I kick it off?
Yeah.
Might as well.
Okay. So I guess we haven't talked for a while. A lot probably has gone on since the last time we talked. I started working on a new project called Jupyter.js output area, which is the modular output area for our new front end. In doing that, I started writing interface for TransferMime, and when I did that, I realized that the TransferMime API was less than ideal. So I went back and worked with Kyle and Will to write a new TransferMime API. And then the last piece of news I have to share probably will take, I'm probably speaking a little bit about what Sylvan and Jason are going to talk about, but we released IPY widgets finally as an independent package.
Great.
And then we released it again and again. I'm probably going to release it again today. So I'm still trying to figure out the release process, but just minor patch releases. Things like the README kind of got screwed up in the first release. Other than that, this week I will continue to work on the Jupyter.js output area project.
Okay. Oberon? We don't have Oberon, do we?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, yeah, we do. There you go.
Yeah, so I've been spending a good amount of time looking at getting IPython Parallel and Yarn to work together. It's actually turning into a larger project than I expected. But thank you, Min, for putting me in contact with Ben Zaitlin from Continuum. He's also been working on this, and so we've started kind of comparing what we're doing and are going to collaborate on this. I also went and just made a fun kind of little side project that you can see on the hackpad. It was just a quick little project to teach myself CSS and less. And I just animated the Jupyter logo so the moons actually go and fly around in 3D.
I think some astronomers may take some issue with the plane of orbit on some of those moons, but it's cool.
My defense for that is Galileo didn't know about that at the time.
Okay. All right. But yeah,
And that's
cool.
it for me.
Thanks.
Over the last week, I've been working on the website still. Front page is almost...
Está en cámara, está en cámara. Estás en cámara grabando.
Working on the website.
Yeah, so I've been continuing to work on like my spreadsheet. I've also started looking into how the Phosphor notebook's working. I'll be working at some point, I guess, with the front end work, and then otherwise.
Can you speak up a little bit? Sorry.
Oh, all right. So I've been working mostly on the spreadsheet still, but I've been starting to look into like the Phosphor notebook and how that all works together. Because I guess I'll be working on that soon. Otherwise, I've been like, I guess recently on the spreadsheet, I've been looking into Phosphor's events or messages, I guess, and getting that all working.
Cool. Rando?
Yeah, mostly activities around travel, PyData Seattle, and everything that happened around there. Lots of discussions there, and I went back to back from that to Foo Camp, which is an on-conference that happens at the O'Reilly headquarters, which is just north of here, where I had a lot of discussions with Andrew Ottawan and various Paco Nathan, who was also at PyData Seattle, and people at O'Reilly around kind of the continued work with Phoebe and notebooks and education and publication at O'Reilly. And so kind of more of what kind of the notebooks and publishing pipelines and book publishing and containerization for delivering content coupled to execution kind of ideas that we've been discussing with them. So kind of lots more of that kind of work that I tend to do in the background kind of thing, less coupled to deliverables on repos, as you know from me at this point. But that takes time.
Cool.
I guess I'm up next. So, been working with, talking with Brian Granger and some other guys about what I need to do to Phosphor to make it more usable outside of just purely the panel layout context, which seemed to be a rapidly an idea that was rapidly gaining momentum, and people were starting to speak out about wanting more functionality than was there. So that's an interesting problem to solve, given that the Phosphor layout system kind of assumes the world is absolutely positioned. And so I've been doing a lot of refactoring on a branch about seeing if I can make that model a bit more play a bit more nicely, and allow it to mix both absolute layout and CSS layout to give us a single widget hierarchy that can be used for both leaf content generation with standard CSS layout, as well as keep the performance that we get with the absolute layout engine for things like panels and dock areas and that kind of stuff. So that refactoring, that experiment, if you will, has gone well in terms of I was able to achieve those goals with a minor performance hit to the absolute layout engine, and so that trade-off seems to be one that's worth making, and that we do give up a bit in terms of the absolute performance of those absolute layouts, but what we gain in terms of flexibility seems to be worth it. So I'm going to continue pursuing that. Hopefully that's going well, or that is going well. Hopefully it will be done soon. The experiment to move Phosphor over to ES6 modules, however, was a complete and utter failure, and my conclusion there is that ES6 modules are not ready for prime time because they have absolutely no bundling story whatsoever. So I'm unwinding that work and going back to what we had before, where we just distribute Phosphor as a single namespace, just a Phosphor object that's then a namespace that has the rest of Phosphor underneath it. And to the extent that people will want to use that within an AMD context or a common JS context, I can wrap that namespace up in a UMD universal module definition format that will allow you to require that namespace using whatever module loader you like. But yeah, so that was unfortunate. That was a pretty big time sink. But at least I know now that probably for the next year, until they actually get a bundling story with ES6 modules, to just distributing packages as a large namespace wrapped up in a UMD module definition is probably the best way to move forward. So that's all I got.
Okay.
Hey, Chris, if it's not too long, could you tell us what the performance problems are? Or the performance disadvantages that you introduced in order to get the flexibility?
Well, yeah, I mean, it really just it just boils down again to the problem of reflows in the DOM. And so basically, when you're dealing with when you're dealing in Phosphor's world of everything is absolutely positioned and all of the widgets carry their own geometry information, you eliminate entirely the reflow problem because you're never actually reading data from the DOM. So you can be very efficient and the browser never reflows and like you're living in a nice world. As soon as you want to cross into the world where CSS is managing part of your layout, now you have this problem of passing around geometry data and doing that in a way that's efficient. So in the kind of hierarchies and the kind of widget hierarchies we're wanting to build, the passing of minimum size information in particular is really important because the minimum size of certain containers needs to be computed based on the aggregation, the aggregate of the minimum size of its children, and that's a recursive relationship. And so when you have these nested hierarchies, now you get into a position where the panels need to compute their own minimum sizes based on the computed minimum size of their children, and the only way that information can be passed now is through the DOM and through writing the inline styles. And so when you have changes to one part of the hierarchy, in order to have that information flow up through the ancestors of that hierarchy, you're necessarily reflowing during that situation. So that's one situation where we're going to get reflows that we weren't before. However, those types of interactions are rare compared to resize interactions where, those types of situations where you're changing lower down in the hierarchy and having that geometry information propagate up occurs less frequently than the inverse of that, where you have a top level resize somewhere in the hierarchy and you want to propagate that resize, that new geometry data information down through the hierarchy. And in that, we can still mostly achieve the performance that we had before by passing along that resize information through the resize events, which still flow down through the hierarchy. So we can mostly 95% of the time maintain the performance of the resize events. And what we lose is the reflows when you're doing like a widget insert or remove lower down in the hierarchy. Does that explain, hopefully, the point that you're asking?
That answers the questions that I had, and I agree. It doesn't seem like there's any way around that.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Do we have Steve? I don't see, but he's making notes. I guess we can move on.
Yeah, let's move on. I'll see if I can get him on the call to circle back to him later.
Yeah. I haven't been doing a whole lot of different things, mostly helping get release stuff put through. So the Notebook 4.0 is out. John and folks got the widget stuff out, which means that we really just have IPython to release and the meta package. And that will mean that 4.0 is all the way out the door. And it's really just making sure that the docs are in the right shape for that before we can call it good. So there's no code to do for IPython or the meta package. It's just making sure that the docs are ready for 4.0 to be what everybody's going to get by default. Yeah, that's it.
Cool. So
Will's not here. Kyle, yeah. Okay.
Will can't make it, but I can at least talk on this stuff. I mean, it's the same bits that John was working on too. Will, John, and I went after refactoring stuff for TransferMime to do a different interface than we did before. Like we did away with classes and just had pure functions, and then propagated that entire API change through like various things. So in the case of Jupyter display area, because that was using TransferMime, which is used by Sidecar, we just worked that up, made sure things were working, and then Will did the same for a lot of the packages that he was working on for both the for Hydrogen, the like inline run Jupyter stuff, and then made a prototype like Electron/Atom version of the notebook, but just using the text areas from Atom itself, so not CodeMirror, but then the output areas are the TransferMime, is the TransferMime converted output areas. And so when we have like a real output area that we can use between the two, we'll go ahead and just use those. Yeah, and so it was a lot of updating on like the APIs and kind of like going through how we wanted things to look, and we just kind of kept going back and forth on how we wanted to design it. So, yep.
Great. Jason?
IPython widget release was a big thing. I've been reading up a lot more on collaborative editing and different approaches to that. I posted up on the Gitter chat an experiment, for example, that Maren, the author of CodeMirror, did for collaborative editing, and anyway, there's some interesting discussion there. And I think that's about it.
Thomas? Yeah, sure, Thomas.
I've just been working on release stuff, getting docs ready and things, which Min already described.
And Matthias?
Well, nothing worth mentioning, except it's Thomas' last day.
Yeah. Jess?
I don't have too much new to talk about. I've mostly been off at conferences for my research and stuff. Now I'm back and trying to get some research stuff done, so I haven't really been working on anything IPython related recently. But I probably will start working on getting my class going for the fall again soon. So.
Great, cool. I believe that's everybody that I can see. Other people that I can't see? Chris, did you get find Steve?
Yeah, he should be signing in, unless he's on already.
I heard that someone said he's not connected.
No, Sylvan's here.
Okay. Sylvan, want to go?
Yeah, sorry, I think I was muted probably. So yeah, as everyone has said, I did some very boring like small issues and before the release for IPyWidgets. And so something more interesting this morning, I was looking at the new proposal for the API for threadlets with Observe. And I realized that if we wanted to do something similar to ADOM, meaning using an Observe decorator, this will require adding more to the meta class. So the way Atom does it, I mean, Chris knows it very well, is that the decorator replaces the callback with a placeholder object that will be picked up by the meta class when instantiating the instance of here in our case, so the hash-rate instance. And therefore, we probably cannot really do the same as in Atom unless we make the meta class a bit richer. So I think it's a no-go for this interface, for this API.
Okay.
So I don't know. Maybe Chris has something to say about it, but I guess we cannot really have or use exactly the same thing as, I mean, the same API as Atom. That's it?
Yeah, we can think about what that should look like, but it's good to know that there's a reason to not do what we thought of first anyway.
Sorry, could you say that again?
We can think more about what alternative approaches we need to take as outside the meeting.
Okay. So I'll open a PR so that everyone can see what I've done so far this morning. Actually, okay. I just did this morning, and so open it for discussion, I guess.
Great.
Yeah, why don't you in these notes just like link to it, just add the actual number to that PR. That way, it's in these notes. It's useful to know which PR. I know it says opened a PR. In these notes.
No, I haven't opened the PR. I was in the middle of doing it in the beginning of the meeting. So I'm opening the PR now so that everyone can see it.
Got it.
So,
got it.
Great.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Wonderful. Thank you, Sylvan.
All right. Do we have Steve Sylvester?
Stephen?
I saw him join the meeting, but maybe not.
Hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Thumb up?
Yeah.
All right, so I took the ball from Jason and finished up those Swagger REST API docs and put a link in the hackpad to that. Hopefully those match both the wiki for the IPEP on that and the code itself. I tried to rectify all that, both the old code and the new code. All those sources should line up. And those two PRs should be good to go. I'm going to make another sweep through them to make sure I've got everything lined up, the kernel spec and the contents PRs, and created for our own sanity, a style guide for TypeScript so that we're not nitpicking each other as much in terms of style. If we got a consistent style of writing the code, it'll read cleanly throughout. Sort of the one editor ideal, the one author. And then I've been previous to working at Continuum. I had started consulting at Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, and part of that work led to the slick grid component I created this past weekend. So it took the QGrid from Quantopian and made it to an IPython widget so that you could actually edit the cell contents, add, remove rows, and that gets reflected back into the Python side, into the notebook.
It's funny. It's funny you should say that. I pointed out at people at LBL were asking me about rich widgets, and I pointed them, completely unrelated to you. I pointed them to Quantopian's QGrid, and the first thing that somebody from LBL asked was, "Can this be made editable?" And so I will point them to this PR. So
yeah, Ben Bowen is the one who forwarded your email to me.
Oh, really?
He's my contact there. He's my program manager.
I know that. But it's fun. It's funny because somebody in that thread asked, "Can this be made editable?" And so I didn't realize that. Okay, very cool.
Yep.
Do you still have any contact, any formal contact with LBL at all left, or not?
Yes. So I'm still contracted as a consultant through the end of the year. So I'll still be working on that on the weekends.
Cool.
So, quick question: SlickGrid is not maintained anymore by the original author.
That's
is it
true.
something that you think is a big issue on the medium run?
This is meant as an interim solution to the final phosphor solution. So it was just something to scratch an itch that I had for my job and just happened to work out.
Okay.
Cool. If I think that's everything. Damian has been having technical issues, but he's been working on IPython and the slide export stuff. And we'll probably get another, maybe before we finish releasing 4.0 of everything, we'll probably get a 4.1 of NBConvert with some fixes, a lot of which are related to slide export and updates to Reveal.js. But I think that's everything. Anybody got something to add? Or shall we call it done at half an hour?
I think we should call it done. I had some very interesting discussions at FooCamp on but more on broader community management, but it's something that I want to simmer a little bit longer on before I bring it to the whole group. So I don't want to bring it quite up yet. Let me simmer on it a little bit longer.
Sounds good. All right. That's the end then.
Hi, everyone.
To everyone.